Good evening. I call this regularly scheduled Dunwoody City Council meeting on July 24th, 2023 to order at 6 p.m. unless there's an objection. I see no objection, so the meeting is called to order. Councilman Lambert, can you lead us in the invocation and the pledge, please?
At this meeting, help us to make decisions which keep us faithful to our mission and reflect our values. Give us strength to hold to our purpose, wisdom to guide us, and a keen perception to lead us. And above all, keep us charitable as we deliberate. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Hello. It is time for our public comment section. If you are new to Dunwoody City Council meetings, we have 30 minutes of public comment at the beginning of the meeting and 30 minutes at the end. I have a pile of cards. If you plan to speak and you have not yet filled out a card, this gentleman right here, raise your hand. He will take your cards. We'll do 30 minutes. Each speaker has up to 3 minutes. And if the speaker before you has said what you wanted to say, it's okay to walk up here and say, I agree with the previous speaker. I will go in the order that the cards were put on my desk, starting with Ben Masika. Go ahead. No, go ahead.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. The reason I'm here is to speak and can you hear me now? I'm here to speak in regards to this moratorium that's coming up real soon. And just want to give you a little bit of my background. I got clean here on February 19th, the year 2000 in the city of Dunwoody. I've been giving back since the day I got clean to other recovering addicts. 6 years ago, I got involved with Atlanta Recovery Place. We opened the facility here in Dunwoody. What we've been doing is helping people above and beyond, caring for them, helping them get back to be members of society. Our business has grown. We have hundreds of employees. We have more than one employee per one client. We care for these people. You can't even imagine what this means to us to be able to see these individuals get back their lives on track. And a lot of people in this room either are employees of ours or clients of ours. And I'm just here to tell you that, you know, reading what somebody put down without really getting the real facts behind it is truly sad, because this is something that changes people's lives. And I'd rather see people live a healthy life than be in addiction and finding themselves in jails, institutions. And the next thing you know, unfortunately, a lot of them die. So I know what we're doing here is helping, and we're a big part of this community. You know, we're your next door neighbors all over this place. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. I don't even know what my job is. So the 30 minutes is including the applause. So let's try to give everybody the time that we need to get through this. Stephen Katz.
I also rise in opposition to the moratorium that you're going to or consider today. The moratorium that you passed in February of 2023 was ill-advised. And the moratorium that you are considering, a new expanded, much more expansive moratorium today, is also ill-advised and compounds the problem. It's not hard to see the evidence for why the original moratorium was ill-advised. It was withdrawn after 5 months, and after it became clear that there was no basis to support it, no studies, nothing. And what could have been found in leading up to this is that with a minimal amount of research, you would have found that mental health facilities and drug treatment facilities do not harm the city. In fact, they enhance it. The fact of the matter is that drug treatment facilities and mental health facilities do not increase crime. They reduce crime. Studies by the Johns Hopkins Public Health College, the finest in the world, prove it. And they were readily available when that February 23rd moratorium was passed. Secondly, drug treatment facilities and mental health facilities, mental health treatment facilities, they don't decrease property values. That's been proven in study after study after study. And again, those are readily available to the Planning Commission and to the staff back in February 2023. And I'm not talking about studies from some interested or biased or partisan organization. I'm talking about studies from Johns Hopkins, Congressional Research Service, and other entities that matter and that produce credible reports. So it doesn't increase crime, it reduces crime. Number two, it doesn't affect property values whatsoever. And the third thing, and this goes to the Congressional Research Service, it doesn't make your community less safe. It doesn't make your police officers less safe. And a little blurb will tell you that. Cities that have implemented specialized law enforcement mental health crisis response programs have found the availability of adequate community mental health resources to be essential to a program effectiveness. Research suggests that police officers have perceived the mental health resources in their area as inadequate, cumbersome, or absent altogether. Improving law enforcement's response to individuals experiencing a mental health crisis depends upon the availability of appropriate mental health services.
Thank you.
Thank you. Tom Hetrick, you'll have approach the microphone, speak into it, and you'll have 3 minutes.
Can you hear me? So my name's Tom. My family moved to Dunwoody in 2001. I have been a resident off and on for much of the time between then and now. And I'm a recovering alcoholic and addict. And I just want to ask the audience that if you're in recovery, either mental health or addiction, if you would stand up. So clearly I'm not alone. I went to Dunwoody High School. I was an Eagle Scout at Kingswood United Methodist Church, Troop 477. And around year 18 of my life, I discovered drugs and alcohol. And for much of the next decade, I kind of fumbled around in life. I got lucky. I didn't lose my life like so many of my friends did, but I got lucky, basically. And I'm here today, obviously, to oppose the moratorium. And the only thing I'd really, I guess, like to bring to you all is that, I am a kid who grew up in Dunwoody. I'm sure many of you have kids growing up here now. And if you ask your kids, if they know of any friends who struggle with this, if they've ever heard stories of somebody they know dying, I'd be surprised if they didn't give you a couple examples. And so from my point of view, it's not a problem that an opposition to this moratorium would completely solve. Obviously, there are other factors, but I think making it easier for a kid like me to get access to life-saving help can only be a good thing. So.
Thank you. I think I'm going to mess up your last name, Josh Beckelsmoon. If you'll say your name correctly when you get to the microphone, I'd appreciate that. Thank you. And you'll have 3 minutes, sir. Just speak into the microphone. Oh,
Josh Vexelman.
right. Thank you.
So, just want to start off with my whole point here today
is just tell you guys why I think having easy access to treatment in our own backyards can help the residents of Dunwoody. Kind of with my story is I moved to Dunwoody 3 years ago. I'm a drug addict. I'm an alcoholic. I have about 3 years sober. Just to explain how drugs do not discriminate, I grew up in the suburbs of Windermere, a golf course neighborhood, 2 loving parents. We had money. I had every opportunity in the world to be successful. I got addicted to drugs at the age of 13. I didn't know what to do. Family didn't know what to do. Classmates didn't know what to do. No one knew how to help me because there is no help in Forsyth County because it's not talked about. People just like to ignore people that are struggling. I was lucky enough to actually get treatment because my mom knew a friend whose other son went through it. A lot of my friends did not have access to that. Donnie and Kaylee both died in the suburbs of Forsyth County in their parents' home. Watching my family struggle with me not knowing how to help me is a heartbreak that I just can't even describe. Not a parent, but I could see what my family went through to not know how to help me. What we do here is we help families that are in need, that don't know how to save their child. That's all I have.
Thank you. Jessica Gerstein. Just approach the microphone and you'll have 3 minutes.
Hi, my name's Jessica Gerstein. I'm a licensed mental health provider in 3 states, and I've been working with the mental health and substance abuse community for over 10 years now. First, I just want to start off with some facts that are nationwide because I personally like facts. The last time there was a decrease in overdose per the CDC from the previous year was 2018. The pandemic only exacerbated this, and it increased 29%. The latest CDC data is that in the year of 2021, there was over 106,000 overdoses due to substance use. So why is this important to Dunwoody? It's important to Dunwoody because as someone who provided treatment in this town, I also had the pleasure of working with law enforcement here, and they actually want to know and want to collaborate with mental health providers for assistance specifically with this population because it helps them do their job more safely. And on top of this, they're much like someone else said prior to me, the research suggests that by allowing treatment in the community, we are promoting a drug-free community. A drug-free community means less behavioral issues. Less behavioral issues means less work for law enforcement. And overall, it is safer for not only just the residents, but also the people who work and come to visit in Dunwoody. Overall, as you can see by many of the other people before me, the goal is to oppose the moratorium. Thank you.
Thank you. Ali Mahab. You'll have push the microphone, you'll have 3 minutes.
City Council, thank you for allowing me to speak today. I actually wanted to come to you because a couple of months ago, I spoke to you about finances. And I think I talked about the interest rate environment and different type of investments that were kind of going on and the city wasn't taking advantage of them. We were getting poor interest rates. After that, it does seem like the city has kind of taken a step in the right direction. I saw that we got 2 JP Morgan CDs for over 4%. We got some other banks involved and got better money markets. In another review of our finances, I've seen that I think we're still kind of lagging the relative market. US Treasury bills are still way north of 5.3%. Even brokered CDs and investment grade CDs are north of 5%. So that stated, pretty much I wanted to approach you to ask if the Finance Committee and City Council would take another look at what investment vehicles exist out there for short term. If needed, I know there are definitely residents that are interested in this stuff. I'm interested in this stuff. Creating a committee of some sort of residents, maybe to make proposals into what investments might be good for the city short term, as well as what investments might be good for the city long term. I don't think we really have a long-term investment portfolio. In addition to maybe using that committee to look and review different things or different provisions that we might be overpaying for and just general expenses for the city. That way we can get a little bit tighter and meaner with our budget. With that stated, for the last 90 seconds, I also wanted the record to reflect that we've done a good job of increasing salaries for the city, but I actually don't know if you guys have increased salaries for city council. So that stated, I was actually wanting the record to reflect, I'd like you to review that. relative to our peers. And I wanted the record to reflect that I actually do encourage an increase in some capacity for city council and the mayor's office for that, as well as some type of budget for per diem or different monies for different type of expenses that when you look into the budget, they go off as reimbursements, but it'd be actually a lot easier. It would just be cleaner to have maybe like a per head, something for just general expenses. So thank you.
Thank you. Rabbi, Mandy, I won't even try. Just introduce yourself, pronounce your last name for us, and you'll have 3 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you. My name is Rabbi Mendy Gorari. I have a community center here in Atlanta. And I just want to give you a little background of the first speaker over here that spoke, Mr. Ben Mesika, just to see who is the person that running so many health places here in Dunwoody. There is a lot of people, in a nonprofit organization, as you know, it's very hard to raise money. And when you get to someone that actually willing to give some money, they want their name all over the place, they want recognition, and they want to make sure that it's about them. And when I met a couple of years ago, Ben, I've never literally met a person that just willing to give anyone, anytime, in any condition, without even knowing who gave. And this, we're not talking about hundreds of dollars, we're talking about tens and hundreds of thousands of dollars of help to literally of individuals in the community don't even know where the money coming from. And this is a guy that decided to not just to change his own life, to change hundreds and thousands of people in life and to help them get back to the community. I'll tell you, we had in our community, as a rabbi, we dealt with many issues. I think the biggest issue that you could have in a community is a family that's falling apart from a person in the family that literally is addict to alcohol or drugs or anything like that. And there is no one to take care of him. And in those facilities, they are always, always welcome. If you have money, and if you don't, you will always get treatment. You will always be accepted. You will always be taken care of. And I think it's important to know that in every community we have those. This is not something that happens just to our neighbor or to someone that we hear in the news. It's something that could be, God forbid, with us, with our relatives, with our children, and we need to take care of them like we're taking care of our own. I just want to conclude with a piece from the Bible that talks about that. Exodus 23 said, "You shall not oppress a stranger, for you know the feeling of the stranger, having yourself being strangers." The Bible tells us, don't look on others that are different. Don't look on others that have issues like it's not yours. You come from there. You could be there one day. Make sure that everybody can get the help in your community and not sending them away. Thank you.
Thank you. Andrew, I think it's Merker. You'll have 3 minutes. Thank you for joining us.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm Andrew Merker.
Could you speak a little closer to the microphone? Thank you.
Might remember me from the last city council meeting. I was one that was up here frustrated, saying that this ordinance was kind of directed at my life passion and myself directly. And I'm back again because it's not about me. It's about the community that you guys service and the access to the healthcare that they desperately need. As you can see, the people behind me have come in support of what we believe is a foul in the city. Everybody in this room and everybody up there is connected either directly, indirectly, or even at a chance to somebody who is suffering from substance abuse or mental health disorders, currently either publicly or hidden. And it's unfortunate that it has to stay hidden because of ordinances like this that say, hey, we don't want you in our residence. We don't want you in our town. We want you to be hidden away like you're some sort of evil entity connecting the world. And the citizens of your city, myself, one of those, want you to know that they need to be treated with care and love. My building is on Mount Vernon Road. It's My other building is behind the fire station next to Beechford Hospital. My niece and nephew go to Chestnut Elementary. We're in this community because we want to help people in your city live a happy, healthy, eventful life. The people at this meeting want to prove to you that they are not some negative entity bringing Dunwoody to a bad place. They want to help Dunwoody be what it is. And many years ago, you guys had a state hospital here on the grounds of Brook Run Park, and it had a very negative ending, but it had a very positive beginning. But people turned their backs to them. They cut their funding. And it's really unfortunate that Dunwoody 20 years later is trying to do kind of the same thing of go to the commercial districts, hide them in a warehouse, send them away, compared to welcoming them with open arms and trying to figure out the best way to make the city a better place for all of its residents, no matter what their disabilities might be. So thank you.
Josh, I'm gonna mess it up. The other Josh that was here, you came up a minute ago. I think it's Dufek. If you'll just you'll have 3 minutes when you get to the microphone, if you'll just introduce yourself.
Name's Joshua
Nope,
Dufek.
will you start over in the microphone, please?
Yes, my name's Joshua Dufek. I didn't come here to speak tonight. I actually had no idea what this was. I was asked to come here because I am an addict in recovery, and treatment is part of my story. See, I'm the type of addict that I couldn't stop by myself. I come from a good home. I come from a good family. You know, in 3rd grade, when the teacher ran around the class and said, "Hey, Josh, what do you want to be when you grow up?" My answer wasn't a homeless drug addict addicted to heroin, you know, on the streets of South Florida in the middle of hurricane season. And I tried for years to stop getting off drugs by myself. And I was very unsuccessful at that. It took 17 treatment centers, 26 detoxes before I finally could stand before you today clean. I'm a painter by trade. You know, it's funny, I'm kind of wigged out right now. The last time I was in front of something like this, there was a judge and a bailiff. And, you know, I was not far from seeing a few years behind bars in prison. But, you know, I'm a painter. And one of the things I do in the city of Dunwoody, I pay taxes in the city of Dunwoody, is I paint for Mr. Masika. And he takes a lot of pride in his buildings. And I take a lot of pride in what I do for him. See, it's very important for me today to keep the properties up that I maintain, because for a long time, I had no regard for anybody's property, let alone, you know, mine. I had none. So this is embarrassing. It's hard to come before my peers and a panel. It's hard to do, but I thought it was an important topic. And yeah, thanks for letting me share.
Thank you. I'm gonna totally mess this one up. Is it Dayton is your last name potentially? I'm struggling to read it, and I'm also struggling to sound it out. There's a young man who lives on Mount Vernon, 1742 Mount Vernon. Was that you? Sorry, if you'll say your name, I apologize. We're gonna have to make some change on these cards. I think it's if you'll just introduce yourself.
My name is Davion Dixon. I'm a client at ARP.
Dixon. Uh-huh.
I really don't know what I'm doing up here for sure, but to be real, it seems like an unjust cause because ARP has changed a lot of people's lives. For me, it gives me the tools and helps me. It gives me the tools and it helps me to prepare for life. Cause, you know, I thought that I knew it all as a kid and I was out there with the wrong type of people, and ARP is such a like loving and caring, and they give you a lot of support. You know, I never had a place or never been around people who care so much about the people that are down bad, the people that are affected by drugs. You know, I used to look at drug addicts like, man, I can never be one of y'all, you know, and now that I'm in their shoes, you know, it's hard, but I got a different outlook on it because I know the struggle now. You know, what they do is change people's lives for the better. And it's hard for people to understand if you've never been in those shoes. My family has a different outlook on me because I'm an addict. But when I look at ARP, I look at a family. When I look at the drug community, it's a family. Never have I been so accepted. Never have I been so loved, except for family. They bring me in with open arms. You got loving people that would die for their cause, you know? And it's like, it's outstanding. The work that they do, the work that they provide for people. You know, I'm shaking in my boots being up here, but you know, I think the work that they do is phenomenal. And one day I want to be a part of that. One day I want to change people's lives the way that they change mine. Thanks for letting me share.
Thank you. Christina Anderson. You will have 3 minutes. Just introduce yourself, please.
Okay, hi, my name is
You can pull
Christina
it down if you need to.
Anderson.
Okay.
I'm a parent. My son Jordan was a client of ARP several times within 3 years. I lost my son 2.5 years ago. He had just turned 23. But while he was at ARP, he was helped so many times by the owners, and but they helped me tremendously. I always knew where my son was. It was a text away from texting Brett and Jeff. And I've started volunteering there 2 years ago. And I've gotten to be close to the employees there, and they are my family. They love and care the clients there so much. And there's so many success stories. And my son grew up in Johns Creek. He wanted for nothing. He played on 2 baseball teams. He had good grades. He had great friends. He became addicted, and he was arrested 3 times. He overdosed 3 times. He had been through 11 treatment centers before he was 23. So I just hope that you will reconsider the moratorium, because they're just helping an incredible amount of people. And it's just a really, really, really good program. Thank you.
Thank you. Jasmine Turner. You'll have 3 minutes. Introduce yourself, please. Speak into the microphone. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Good evening. My name is Jasmine Turner, and I am a person in long-term recovery. And what that means for me is that it's been since April the 12th of 2011 since I've used any drugs, alcohol, or mind-altering substances. Some of the gifts that my recovery affords me is I was named a recovery ambassador here in the state of Georgia back in 2022, where I could drive down I-75 to see my face on a billboard. My treatment started right here in Dunwoody. I lived here in Dunwoody for 4 years, and you never got a call about me. 13 years ago, you might have got a call, but not within the last 12 years. And I'm also the recovery minister over at North Atlanta Church of Christ over in Dunwoody, and we do a lot of recovery work. We actually have you, Mayor, coming over September 17th to sign the recovery proclamation into place on September 17th. So we are very, very grateful for that. Another thing that we offer at North Atlanta Church is a family support group that are for the families right here in Dunwoody. So that is mothers, fathers, sisters, brothers, children of people that suffer with a substance use disorder. And so not only we have programs like ARP, who is helping our peers, but we also have people in place that are helping the families, helping people like the mom that just came up. And so I really hope that you would consider, because with sign up the proclamation, to me, that shows that Dunwoody is for recovery, because that wouldn't be happening. So I just really hope that you would consider just rethinking, doing some more research, and looking at the facts of how recovery is possible here in Dunwoody, but also in the whole state of Georgia. There's a movement going on, and Dunwoody has a chance to be a part of that.
Thank you. I believe that concludes public comment. Might have even used all our time. We will have another public comment section at the end of the meeting. And with that, we move on to the consent agenda. this is an action item or are there any questions about the consent agenda? Tom, do you need to recuse yourself? The two of you?
We both need for the
Okay, go ahead.
last meeting.
Okay.
Move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second. Moved by Councilman Hennigan, second by Councilwoman Harris. Any further questions or discussion? Hearing none, I call the question. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Jessica, you got that they weren't at the last meeting, so they abstained, I guess, something like that. Okay. All right. Councilman Hennigan.
Yes, point of information or order, Madam Mayor.
Mhm.
The business item number 3, I believe, needs to be looked at a little closer.
Mhm.
I'd like to, currently it states that it's the approval of the budget amendment and amendment to the position allocation and compensation chart. One is personnel, one is finance. I would like to make a motion that we amend the agenda, making the approval of the budget amendment number 6 in the business items
Mhm.
and action for action items, and then move 6 and 7 down on the agenda. So
Okay,
again, my motion is to
change the agenda.
modify the agenda, take the approval of the budget amendment out of number 3, move it into new number 6 for discussion and action by
Okay,
so
need a second?
Second.
Second by Tom. That motion was by Councilman Councilman Hennigan, second by Councilman Lambert. Any discussion or questions on the motion? Seeing none, I call the question. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries. All right. Ready for the new. You're not Heather.
I'm not Heather.
Yeah, right.
I'm gonna open the item though.
Okay.
We are before you tonight.
I think we have to wait for
Oh, I'm sorry.
Jessica to read it.
Item number 3 is amendment to position allocation and compensation chart by Heather.
Okay. Go ahead.
Okay. We are before you tonight to seek your approval to amend the city's compensation chart. Our proposal comes out of a compensation and benefits study that we've been working on with Evergreen Solutions for the first half of this year. We are first going to have Heather come up and talk to you. She's going to recap the proposal that we discussed at the last meeting and address a question that came up last time. And then we'll call Stacy Witchell up. She was our project manager from Evergreen, and she's also going to address a few questions that came up last time. So I'll turn it over to Heather to start.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. So as Nicole mentioned tonight, we're revisiting the compensation study that we discussed at the last meeting. In this project, we studied both salary and benefits in detail against that of our peers. Our pay ranges are currently in the range of 73 to 74% of market. So to be competitive in our immediate market, we're recommending an adjustment to the 85th percentile. The study found that the benefits we offer are ahead of our peers, and we rely on the total compensation of pay and benefits for recruitment and retention purposes. So just to recap, these are the recommendations that came out of the study. Police officers and detectives would receive an average pay increase of 10%. We would provide a 10% increase for sergeants and lieutenants to match the average increase for the officers and detectives. This is to alleviate compression and maintain internal equity. We would benchmark the city's pay at 85% of the local market, which would mean increasing the salary ranges by 11.5%. We would increase the police officer hiring grid by the same 11.5% to match the new ranges. Provide a 4% increase for all other employees to keep up with inflation. And any employee who does not meet the minimum of the pay grade with the 4% would be brought to the new minimum. Other cities around us are continuously adjusting their pay plans, so it is our recommendation to move ahead with the proposed changes. These changes, coupled with the benefits package we offer, give Dunwoody a very competitive total compensation package. And there was a question at the last meeting about the out-of-pocket expenses for our police officers. So we wanted to provide you with an update. We had a meeting with the chief and deputy chief regarding that.
They had an internal meeting with the command staff, but they did not come up with any new recommendations beyond what the city is currently paying for. But we will continue to work with the chief, deputy chief, and the management team to come up with creative ideas for our officers, and we'll review and look to implement those at a later date.
Thank you.
So at this time, I'll turn it over to Stacy, and she'll address some of the other points that were discussed at the last meeting.
Well, hello again, Mayor, council members. Can you guys hear me okay? Okay, good.
Yes.
So thanks for having me back. I went back with a few questions that were asked last time. One of them was, what would we be at the 90th percentile versus the 85th? So we did run those numbers, went back in and looked. And when I ran those, the increase there in cost would be about $140,000 if you wanted to move to the 90th percentile. And the other issue that we found was that it did create some compression at some other levels, primarily in police leadership. So where we were correcting some of the compression issues in the proposed system, this would actually address some in some other places. The other thing that we looked at, there was a question for the implementation cost. What was police department cost versus implementation for the rest of the departments? Well, about 80% of the cost at that 85th percentile is with the police department staff. So that's those salary adjustments. It's your biggest department, so that makes sense. And then I did go back in and look one more time since I was taking another look at your data, and I looked at some secondary data that we had available to us, some other average actual salaries that we pulled. And I was looking at that move between 85th percentile versus 90th and looking at those average actual salaries. And I found with those average actual salaries that your current average actuals for your upper level management and your director level follows what we found with market. Your market salary ranges, you're about 11.5% at the midpoint. You're about 11.5 to up to 20% sometimes in some positions with actual salaries, not just salary ranges. But when we make that adjustment at the 85th percentile, that does help to address those kind of shortfalls. So final recommendations is where we were last time. I wouldn't propose any other changes at this point.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Questions, an action item, it needs a motion. Anybody have questions? Go ahead, John.
Thank you for the presentation. Can you put in front of us the actual salary charts? Where are they that we're approving tonight?
They're uploaded, right?
I just had questions regarding the police in particular.
Is there someone from IT that can come help? I think they probably heard me. Here comes Jay. He might be able to help.
Sure.
Right.
Oh, sure. IT is taking it over.
Okay.
I like it when they take over the screen.
Let me ask my question as they're pulling it up. When I take a look at the charts, I'm just want to make sure that there's two different charts. There's the all employees chart, and then there's a separate police chart. And do they match? To me, that seems like there's some disconnect between those two charts.
So you're talking about, this is the proposed salary structure, right? And then this one is the hiring grid?
If you're looking at something, we're not. We can't see it, so IT needs to share it so we can see it. There we go.
Behind the glass screen.
Right.
I just want to know what we're approving actually. What chart are we approving? I'd like to see that and then compare that against this chart that you show in front of us with the other police chart that was
With the
shown.
hiring grid,
Probably, yeah.
yes. So when we,
Again, that's why I'm asking.
okay, so when we go back here, where I highlighted those rows, sorry, in blue, that's where your police department positions are compensated at. That 107 is your police officers
Right.
and detectives. This is where you would hire them in at based on experience and or education. So we updated this to be consistent with the recommendations in the salary chart.
Okay, so the one that I'm looking at is a hiring chart, not the total compensation chart.
Right.
And then where's the actual hiring grid that we are putting in place today?
This,
I think what we're looking at, we are looking at the packet that's a PDF. It's a one page. The title says City of Dunwoody Police Officer Hiring Scale. So the attachments, you're reviewing the presentation. If you look at the separate attachments.
It's a
on the
separate
agenda,
attachment. It's got,
There's two separate attachments we should be viewing, and we'd like to confirm that that's what we're approving.
the proposed position allocation and compensation chart.
Yes.
yes.
Which one are they looking?
That's a PDF attached to the agenda. And same way with current and proposed police officer hiring grid.
It looks like we're having a hard time pulling it up. Is that
Wait,
what-
we
is
can't
there-
hear you.
Said it looks like they're having a hard time pulling it up. Is there a question about the two?
Yeah, I
What's the
think that-
specific question?
Well, my first question was I wanted to make sure I knew exactly what chart we were approving. And I believe there is on Dunwoody letterhead, a proposed
Yes.
position allocation and compensation chart in red, which shows all the new ones.
Right.
So I was looking at that, and then I was comparing that against the police chart, which was then 2 pages down,
Mhm.
which is the police officer hiring scale. And I'm trying to understand the differences between the hiring scale. I guess the hiring scale is when we bring somebody in at year 1 with 10 years experience, they're at a certain point. I'm trying to understand how this chart matches the total compensation chart. I wanted to make sure that everything jived.
Okay.
I wanted to know what we were
I'm with you.
approving. And I want to make sure it jived.
So what council is approving under the charter, what you have to approve is the compensation chart. We can't make changes to it without
Right,
council
right.
approval. So that one that has all the red on it is what you all are approving tonight.
Okay,
The hiring grid, which in your packet should look like this, it's
Correct.
blue.
right.
It's
Yes.
got the current grid at the top, the proposed grid at the bottom. That's what we use internally and
Mhm.
externally. We have it posted on the city website. It's what we use when we're hiring a police officer in. So, and it's very common. It's really kind of best practice, at least in our area where it's very competitive, because the candidates will look at that to see, okay, if I come to your city, exactly where do I fall in terms of where would I be hired? So when you see that start at 56,970 on the new chart for no experience and high school diploma, it lines up with the starting pay for a police officer on the compensation chart that you're approving.
Correct. I was looking at the plus 10 years with a master's degree, and where did that fall? Again, one is a hiring and one is total compensation.
Correct.
So there's a disconnect. There's wiggle room there at the back end. So I get it.
Well, so the increases here are based on internal policy. So for each year of experience, we're figuring that on a 3% increase, which is roughly what we've done historically on average for employee pay, roughly 3% per year. So we're trying to keep the new hires at a similar pay level to where the current hires will be. So we're trying to match that up. And then each year, or each degree that somebody gets is an increase in pay, same as it is for our current employees. So the new hire would get that same educational increase as an existing employee. Again, we're doing this all for equity, so that what we don't want is have a new officer come in and be making more than an existing officer, similarly situated.
Thank you, Nicole. You've answered my question. I just want to make sure I understand what we're approving tonight, and I think I know exactly what it is. And if you've answered my question regarding the hiring scale versus the total compensation pay package. So thank you.
Thank you. Any additional questions or comments? This is an action item.
Thank you for the detail and thank you for the second read and having the background and doing this. Just anecdotally, I look at our benefits and it is really, if you look at the peers in comparison, it really does stand out. Went to Starbucks Sunday morning, and here comes one of our law enforcement officers on his big e-bike that lives in Dunwoody, been living here for 10 years, used to live in apartments, now just bought a home in the Branches, and he's engaged. And isn't that wonderful that we have police officers that are living in our town, that we're promoting that and supporting that option. So thank you, folks.
Move to approve. Moved by Councilman Harris,
Second.
second by Councilman Seconder. Any further questions or discussion? Seeing none, I call the question. All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, that motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you. And
Item number 4 is a facility uses agreement with Dunwoody High School Softball Booster Club Incorporated. Brent Walker.
Evening, Mayor and Council. This is an agenda item that we spoke about back in March when we first started a relationship with Peachtree Club Softball. That's our middle school softball team. The girls team, they have now fielded 2 teams for this coming up season. Very exciting for them. And so they would like to utilize Brook Run Park's softball/baseball field now. We've completed the softball field overlay and purchase items needed to transition that baseball field into a softball field for their use. The usage agreement will actually be with the Dunwoody High School Softball Booster Club Incorporated. They do have their 501c3 status letter from the IRS now. So we're ready to move forward with the approval of their usage agreement.
Thank you. Wait, but did Jessica read that?
Yes.
Okay, sorry. Okay. All right. Anybody have any questions for Brent? And this is an action item.
Move to approve.
Moved by Councilman Harris,
Second.
second by Councilman Seconder. Any further questions or comments? Thank you very much, Brent, and your team for getting this done. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, this motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor.
Madam Mayor. This next item on this agenda, should be corrected because there's a typo.
Okay. Wait. First, Jessica has to read it. Go ahead.
A resolution for a temporary moratorium of the acceptance of new application for business licenses or special use approval, permitted use approval, or building, land disturbance, site plan and design review, or other permits and licenses for drug rehabilitation centers and other facilities that treat drug and alcohol dependency.
Madam Mayor,
Yes.
I'd like to ensure consistency between the agenda item and the resolution. I'd like to move that we amend the agenda for item number 5 to read resolution extending a moratorium on drug rehabilitation centers and other facilities for treatment of drug and alcohol dependency. So adding the words "and alcohol."
Thank you. So that's a motion to amend the agenda. It needs a second.
Second.
Second by Councilman Hennigan. Any further discussion or questions about the amendment? Seeing none, or the amendment to the agenda. Seeing none, I call the question. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries. All right, now, Mr. Leinhardt, you are up.
Yep. Good evening, Mayor. Good evening, Council. Today we're presenting to you, or we're proposing to you, an extension of our moratorium on drug rehabilitation centers and other drug treatment facilities and alcohol treatment facilities. We're proposing to extend this through February 27th, which will be 1 year after the initial moratorium was adopted. We propose to conduct further study in the first 90 days of the moratorium, and then bring back to you an updated text amendment with regulations for those facilities in Dunwoody.
Thank you. Before I ask council if they have any questions or comments, I want to make a statement. Just to make sure we're clear, the moratorium doesn't affect any existing facilities in Dunwoody. It doesn't affect any facilities that are currently open and operating in terms of their current operations. Your stories today were very powerful and moving, and we are so grateful and incredibly proud of the hard work you have put in to reach this point. And so with that, I will open up for questions or comments from council. Go ahead, John.
Thank you.
Paul probably needs to come back.
Yeah, where do you go?
He left the room.
There he is. There's Paul.
Okay.
Thank you, Paul. I'm looking at this, I'm trying to understand all the aspects of it. The first moratorium back in February, you said the staff will review the state requirements, review best practices and come back to us. And now I'm guessing that was done, but you're not done with it yet.
So we had proposed a text amendment to y'all at the first meeting in July, and that was tabled, and we're just asking for more time to study this more, bring it back, because we need regulations for those uses in the city.
Okay. Again, this is a zoning issue. There's, again, as somebody said, everybody has been touched by dependency. You know, I'm one of those. My family, everybody. I know people. I think this is important. This is a zoning issue. This is not about dependency. This is a zoning issue. We take zoning very seriously, and we want to make sure that our zoning laws are right. So I'm in favor of if you need more time to get this right, let's get this right from a zoning perspective. That being said, I know the city of Dunwoody does everything they can to lessen the effects of drugs and alcohol, and we've done a whole bunch of things in the sense of Narcan in our police department and other things from that perspective. But okay, I'm just trying to understand that you're given 180 days and now you want more time. If you say you need it, you need it. I'm looking forward to the presentation of the future zoning matter. Thank you.
Any further questions or comments? And Paul, if you'll come back up, sorry. Just have you stand. To be clear, just from council's perspective, if you get to a point where you're ready sooner than 90 days or 100, you can bring it back to us at that point, correct?
That's correct.
So that's just the hard deadline we set. Okay. All right. Any further questions or comments? This is an action item. Oh, Rob.
I'm just going to echo that this year rather than February of next year would be great if we can get the zoning figured out, and then there'll be kind of a clear direction on what people want to do if they want to do a new facility in the city. Thanks.
Move to approve.
Moved by John.
Second.
Second by Joe. Any further discussion or questions? Hearing none, I call the question. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, this motion carries. Thank you. And now we have the new number 6, whenever you're ready, Jessica.
Item number 6 is a resolution amending the budget for the fiscal year 2023 for the general fund of the city of Dunwoody, Georgia, pursuant to Article 5, Section 5 of the Charter of the City, beginning January 1st, 2023 and ending December 31st, 2023, appropriating the amounts shown in each budget, expenditures, adopting the item of anticipated funding sources, prohibiting expenditures to exceed appropriations, and prohibiting expenditures from exceeding actual funding sources. Richard Blackwell.
Thank you. I will give it 1 minute as the room empties.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. So in conjunction with item 3, the adjustments to the compensation chart, this agenda item says just the budget to account for those changes this year, fiscal year 2023. If you recall, the total amount of the changes for the full year is approximately $636,000. These will take effect August 1st. So we're looking at 5 months of adjustments that are needed in fiscal year 2023. That equates to about $265,000. Of those amount, 80%, $211,000 related to police. They have had some vacancies this year. They're running under budget in their salaries and wages for the year. Through June, they're about 165,000 over. Under budget, and it equates to approximately a little bit over $300,000 at the end of the year that they're under budget. So we're going to utilize those funds and not adjust police at this time, and they can absorb it within their department. The remaining 52,000, we're going to use contingency. We budget $100,000 in contingency. We're going to use $52,000 of that to fund the other departments' changes that result from this compensation study.
Thank you. Does anyone have questions about this? Seeing none, this is an action item.
Move to approve.
Moved by Joe,
Second.
second by Rob. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, this motion carries. Thank you. Next, Michael Starling, because we're out of our action items. Gateway sign. Construction.
Michael's, yes, he was gonna cover for me because I wasn't sure I was gonna make it back in.
Oh,
town,
you're back.
But I made it.
You weren't
Yeah.
supposed to be here.
No,
You're
I
back.
made it
Okay.
back and.
Thank you for
he-
joining us.
He graciously was going to cover for me, but. That IT share.
So yeah, I didn't look up before I called on it.
All right, just to refresh everyone's memory, back at the end of 2020, the CVB, Discover Dunwoody and the PCID and the city worked together with a consultant to develop gateway signage design for the city. And this is what was approved by everybody. Granite signs with the words Dunwoody spelled out, both horizontal signs and vertical signs. The smaller horizontal signs, just to give you a sense of scale, about 18 feet long, about 3.5 feet high. And then the vertical signs are about 18 feet tall. That's what these look like. And then there was a larger horizontal sign for entrances like Ashford, Dunwoody, the major entrances into the city. And that one's a pretty substantial sign. It's 40 feet long and close to 6 feet tall. So that's what we moved forward with. And then sometime late, about a year ago, the city council allocated some of the ARPA money towards the construction of the signs. And so then we worked with TSW, the designer, to come up with the final locations and final design. These are the 16 locations where they're proposed throughout the city, both, some horizontal, some vertical signs, but they're at all the major roadway entrances into the city. And so the TSW worked to finalize the details of those design. And then recently we put out a bid and we received one bid worth, I think this is a specialty type item. So there's, it's a sign company or somebody that specializes in signs that's doing this. So we didn't get, there's not a large pool of contractors to pull from on this, but we got one bid, which was a little bit under the designer's estimate. And it was for all 16 locations, it was $1,035,000. And we did have them itemize for each location so that if we wanted to, not do them all now or, do some now and some later, we do have that ability. But Jay and Richard Plato have worked together to kind of piece together the funding for this. And we do have funding if the council wants to go ahead and do all of them now. We're waiting on the CID board to meet in August to firm up their commitment of exactly how much they're going to contribute for the signs in the perimeter area. So we just wanted to bring an update to you for discussion before we move forward with finalizing a contract and the funding.
Okay. Any questions or comments, Tom?
Yeah, thank you, Michael. Reading through the packet there, it's pending approval, of course. The fabricator would work on their design or whatever, and then begin fabricating the signs in about 6 weeks. So presuming this is approved, what would be the timeline for actually having the signage installed?
I can get an answer from them on that. We have not gotten a full schedule from them yet. I had asked them, how much time does it take to fabricate the signs? And they said they could, within 6 weeks be installing them. We need to get a schedule on the actual completion of all the installation. But I suspect we'll get a schedule for them, but I think it will take several months.
Okay, and so that would be beginning the installation in 6 weeks, not beginning fabricating the signs. Okay.
Well, 6 weeks from when we give them a contract, they could have the signs fabricated and ready to start putting them in the ground.
And just to be clear, does the cost include the installation or is it?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Joe?
So, when we're looking at the placement of those, I know we have the big picture map, but when it gets down to the actual physical location, and we sync this with our trail master plan in the right of way for whether it's going to be a sidewalk, easement, is it going to be affect anything? How do we vet that against that placement? for
There's
future?
a link in the memo to the detailed architectural drawings that show exactly where the signs go at each site. We have coordinated that. We had to shift a few of the signs around. There's a lot, as we know, there's a lot of utilities, and a couple of them, like Tilly Mill, for example, over coming up Tilly Mill off of Peachtree Industrial. We had to move it to the opposite side of the road because we couldn't find a spot on the right side near the city line where we could fit it with all the utilities and other constraints. So yes, that's all been coordinated.
That's been coordinated. That's good to know. And then just to confirm what Sal mentioned, because I read about the 6 weeks to complete shop drawings, but just, okay, anyway, I'll be let's be conservative, under commit, over deliver, on that one. I have a related question. This might be more for Eric for you, but related. I'm glad that we're seeing this. Again, this is prior to me being on council. 2019 started this process, so it's been a long time coming. And I want to thank staff for finding the funds and seeing this, because it really helps with the sense of place, of having a pride of where we live, of letting people know that you're arriving somewhere, not just passing through. So I'm really a big proponent of this. I'd like to ask, complimentary to this, whether it's for you or to Eric for a second time, is follow-up is about the wayfinding signage as well, the directional part of this. It's not the big one, but it's where's the nature center, where's the library, where's Brook Run? Is that in the mix of this conversation at all?
The style of those signs was determined back in 2020, but there's no funding allocated for final design implementation of that. So we have a sign brand or package, but we don't have any details beyond that because there's no funding associated with it currently.
Maybe we could have that on a future council item for discussion to see, because maybe there's other options of just, hey, here's an MUTC design standard sign that shows 1.2 miles to the nature center this direction. All right, or the trailhead this way. So maybe we could do that in the near future. Council just have that conversation. But thank you.
John?
Yeah, thank you, Michael. You've already mentioned the Tilly Mill. That was one of my questions in the sense of the city boundaries and the lines and where it all lays out. I do not see the link. I wanted to check the link. I wanted to see where specifically some of these monuments are, just so I could have my own, I would want to answer some of my questions on some of the locations. I didn't see the link. Maybe I missed it.
You're right. I think the memo got updated since I last saw it. So there was a link to the bid in there, but we can send everybody. The plans were too big to put in the agenda, but we can provide a link for the bid and the plans.
I'm okay approving it without the link, but I do want the link for council. I think this is an action item. No, it's not. No, it's not. It's
Action item.
so for the next one, yeah, I'd love to see the link. I'd love to see where it's going on some of the boundary locations. And then I was looking at the finances aspect of it. For example, the cost of Tilly Mill versus Shallowford. To me, they're both entrances into the city. Why is one deemed twice as expensive as the other?
Let's see, let me pull up the bid form here. You mentioned North Shallowford compared to.
Yeah, I think it's number 3 and number 8, maybe, or
so North Shallowford's 110,000.
Right.
North Peachtree is 62. I believe.
And then Tilly Mill's in the 40s.
Yeah, Tilly, the 40s, the ones around 40, 50,000 are the vertical signs.
Okay,
I do know that. I think North Shaliford may be, that one sits back further off the road, kind of at the corner of the apartments there. And so that's the larger horizontal sign. Whereas the one at North Peachtree kind of sits up on the hill in front of the gas station.
right.
So it's the smaller horizontal one. So that, I think that's the difference in cost there. Generally, the cost, I mean, there's a little bit of variation, but generally the cost difference is based on the sign.
And I'm good with
type.
variation throughout the city. We don't need the same sign everywhere.
Yeah.
So I mean, I understand it. And as far as you, since you raised it, the one by the gas station at North Peachtree, that is a high probability of being hit by vehicles. So I don't know, just coming off the on-ramp there, I'm just saying, is there any way to protect that sign, or is there any landscaping or anything there? Just, that's just one of the things I'd be looking at when I do a tight review.
Yeah. I'll take another look at it, but as I recall, that one's pretty far up off the road.
Okay,
Like it kind of, it's a little bit up the hill.
Okay.
Um,
I trust you. I just figured I would raise the
Yeah.
issue. Thank you. No other questions.
Can we get a more detailed map that shows us what each dot on this map is going to receive? I mean, I don't want to be in the weeds, but I'm just kind of curious, like,
I could.
or the bid, is that in the bid document?
Well, the design has all those details, but for simplicity, I could color code this map. We could
Something, yeah.
put one color for vertical, one for small horizontal, one for large horizontal.
And then I'm kind of with council I'm not kind of, I wish we could, if we need to look at the $1 million for all we have for signs for the next 12 to 18 months, I wish we could reduce the number of these big signs and do some of the wayfinding signs as well. I don't know if that muddies the discussion too much, because in some cases, I think people are going to pass. I'm not very good at maps. This is not a secret, but I think in some cases, potentially, maybe we could have a few fewer of these bigger signs and have the direction signs to the library. But we can maybe.
So would you like us to provide a recommendation of where
Yeah.
the small, I mean, these signs we could cut, I mean, we have the ability in the
Right.
bid to take out or ones that we don't want to do now.
I'm one vote on this board, and I don't know that anybody agrees with me. And also we're not worried about the swing sign right now, right?
That's a different.
That's a different, okay, that was the sign, in case you don't know that the letters actually swung. And we know like where we're placing all these already, we have right away, or you still have to acquire?
There's one, the one on Perimeter Center West, we
Right.
still have to get an
Okay.
easement.
Okay,
But all the others are in the right of way, except for at Ashford Dunwoody, we have a deal there with the developer for that.
yeah. And what happens if they don't develop? We just don't get to put the sign up right away?
I'll have to go back and read the zoning condition again. I think it considered who was gonna be there first. I think if I remember, if we're there first, they give us the easement. If they get there first, then they build the sign.
Okay. Does anyone concur with doing fewer? I mean, because don't waste your time if I'm the only person who feels like this. Or if everyone wants to do all 16 of these first, that's fine. I mean, I'm one vote.
I mean, my preference would be to do them all at once.
that's fine.
And I don't want to leave off a gateway into
Yeah.
the city.
Okay.
I'd also leave them on, and then I'd like to, when we talk about just the wayfinding, let's look at some, again, show some standard MUTC things that could be funded through operation maintenance. Here's what the
You're
let's
talking
show,
about like the green sign with.
just show them what those other signage look
I
like.
think they're blue, right? Direction, right? Whatever the normal cut, like just the sign, the brown history signs,
If
you
could
know,
show us,
Right,
something like
right,
that.
Right.
Okay,
thanks.
right. We want to make sure.
And
Yes,
we,
go ahead.
we do want to make sure that they're all in Dunwoody and not make the mistake that our neighbors did. And
Right. And put us, we don't need to, we want to perform better than our next door neighbor and have the signs that are in Dunwoody.
Yes.
Okay. All right. So you'll bring, I think there were enough were there questions or can this be consent? Oh, but you wanted more documents? Okay. All right, that's fine. That's fine. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Probably don't go far though, because with the SPOS, we might have questions for
Okay.
you. Mr. Vinicki, you are up for SPOS.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Let's see. It seems like just a few years ago, the county of DeKalb and all the cities were looking at its very first SPOS. And for those that don't know, that is a special purpose local option sales tax, which will allow allowed the counties and the cities to do capital construction. We were one of the few major metro area counties. In fact, we were the only large one that did not have one. We used what was called a host and a fraction of that to do some capital improvements, but most of host, which was another penny sales tax, was for property tax relief. So back in 2017, the voters approved a SPOS penny and changed the way host was calculated. So this county levels 1 penny for property tax relief and 1 penny for capital improvements. Well, welcome to the year 2023. We now have to renew SPOS. It'll be the first time it's renewed, and that effort has started to go underway. Part of what I've just said is recapped on here. So what we want to do with this presentation tonight is two purposes. One is to show you where your penny and where that money has gone so far. The second thing is to have a discussion and guidance from council to put an IGA on the next agenda, which will give us a outline on where the city would like to spend this and what we're going to call SPOS 2. Part of this train is a little bit going fast right now because we're trying to get everything done in August and September. I would recommend that the city be ahead of the curve than behind it, which is why we're having the discussion today. So let's go first to the old law. The original budget for SPOS was what is sarcastically, and I will use that term because I was on the side of the aisle that got it handed back to me, baby SPOS. The General Assembly did not give us permission to do it for all capital improvements as other cities and counties were. We were restricted to 3 areas. We were restricted to limited use. Transportation and public safety were the 2 primary uses, and then up to 15% of it could be used for repair of capital outlays. So in other words, to extend the life of a building. Now, this was called, as we said, baby SPOS and restricted it. What you see before you is the original budget that Dunwoody did last time. 36 million for transportation projects, 6 million for public safety, and 1.2 for capital outlay, below the 15% threshold. But this is exactly the words that the city council passed 6 years ago. We're going to talk about where that money has gone so far, and then talk about options going forward. Okay, so if you look through the spending through May of 2023, and these are unaudited numbers, we broke the categories into something that's more how the lay citizens would look at it. About 58% of your SPOS budget has gone towards citywide repaving. And that's part of why you're still here, Michael. I just remembered that. Part of looking at that program, that's where the vast majority of it is. And that's a great deal for us. The program exists because of SPOS. Your other bigger portions, and the 2 that we like to put in transportation, we broke intersection improvements and bicycle and pedestrian improvements into categories. It's a little bit tough because some projects have a little bit of both. So we did some estimating on it. But again, a lion's share, when you're looking at the 2 combined, over a quarter of SPOS went to that. Then we start getting into the next biggest categories, and that's police parts, vehicles, equipment, radio improvements, and very little of it has gone to facilities repairs and maintenance. And that's one of the things we're talking about. It's a little bit difficult to find the perfect SPOS project because they need to be big for us to capitalize it, but we're working on turning that into a more robust program. The map before you has both highlighted the entire repaving since Dunwoody was incorporated, and also highlighted out what's been done through SPOS. So this is available out there, and a long list of streets. Also looking at a separate map, which is all the SPOS funded transportation projects that have been done during this time. Looking at where the police funding went to, it went to vehicles, in-car camera replacements, various equipment, AED in the vehicles, video surveillance, and radio improvements. The police capital improvements are funded through SPOS. That is a dedicated stream, and that they're allotted their portion of it, and it's planned out over 5 years. Now let's talk about big boy SPOS. Okay, now I've sat through numerous county meetings on this, and they love to put up this list of things that we can spend it on. For instance, if the city of Dunwoody wanted to build an airport, you could build an airport with SPOS. I will assume that the council says we can take that off the table and not discuss it. Okay. Things that are in there, we're going to get a little bit is cultural, recreation, and historic facilities. That's where you get into parks and the like. So that is something that is new for us. Now, we also have a second thing, a GO bond referendum at the same time. So that's part of the discussion for tonight. The third one, I don't think we're looking at building a new courthouse or a civic center or a correctional facility unless you're really gung-ho on that. Didn't think so. Stormwater and water and sewer, we do not run the water and sewer plant. We do run stormwater, but it's done through a separate utility fee, so we can do that. We don't have geo debt to retire, so that's off the table. We don't run voting, so that's off the table, and we don't run hospitals. So it limits you to even what you can add on this because we don't provide some of those functions. But here's what I want you to look at. This is the current SPOS budget broken by percentage, and I want to do it that way. The amount that I will recommend or staff will recommend at the next meeting will be dollar figures, not percentages, because percentages handcuffs you and puts you into that. You are required to spend at least $36.78 million on transportation with SPOS. We will do that because we've collected in excess of that. If we pass the percentage, then you would always be required to do 84% and no more. So what we recommend is always putting the dollar figures in the resolution. And if you get overages, then as a decision of a future council years from now, adjust it. So probably next year, we may adjust some more off of this. So let's look at what option one would be if we took this new number, and I'm going to say full disclosure, this 51.6 is my internal SPOS projection. We are still discussing that between the cities, so that number may vary. It may even change this week, but it's good for discussion purposes. So over 6 years, get 51.6 million. If you did the same percentage allotment, you'd see transportation would go up from 36.7 to 43.1, public safety from 6 to 7, and repairs from 1.2 to 1.4. We don't recommend option one. The reason 2023 is not the same as 2017. Need to look at it under the broad scope of everything that's going on. So here's what staff has discussed internally and would like to recommend for discussion purposes. Adding in parks and green space, land acquisition and the like as a small amount. The reason being, if it is not on the resolution passed by this council, it cannot be spent. So 4 years from now, if you needed a little bit more for parks, either acquisition or development, you couldn't use it if it's not on the ballot question. So we recommend adding a small amount because you also have on the same vote, the same day of the vote, a GO bond referendum tied to parks. It gives you a little bit of a secondary source of income later on if you need it. You have to spend a minimal amount, so something along the lines of 1 or 2% of the total amount, so it's on there. Also recommending decreasing the repair fund. The city council, when we were looking at a few, capital a little bit ago, put up what we're calling the General Fund Capital Repair and Improvement Program is our final name for it. It'll change next week because I can't ever remember the acronym for it. But we have set up a repair fund for our capital assets that both facilities and through the Parks and Recreation Department myself are starting to do bigger projects that we haven't been able to do. So we actually recommend that we could decrease the amount of SPOS that's dedicated to that. However, we still want a little bit in there to not prohibit us from using it going forward. And that's where we get to this. So in other words, the discussion is around this. The projections in option one show 84, 14, and 3%. We're looking at something a little bit less on transportation, maybe a little bit more on public safety, and a minimal amount, maybe 1 or 2% in the parks and green space category and the repairs category as what this council would put on their ballot for their voters to approve. Now, every city in the unincorporated area has a different list. So the list in Brookhaven, Chamblee, and Doraville will not look like our list. The city managers have been going back and forth this week over discussions about it. Almost everyone is going to go with broad categories. We've already had one SPOS up there. Some cities put very specific projects, but they've realized it's managing a plan. I can say that almost everybody that's been vocal about it on the administrative side has said they're all looking at just doing broad categories like we did the last time: transportation, public safety, and repairs and maintenance, but in this time adding in parks and green space. And with that,
Can you leave that up? So council, what our job is tonight is to give some guidance because we probably need to approve this list in the next 4 weeks, 5 weeks. Just in the broad categories and just for the general public who might be listening. If SPLOST fails in DeKalb County, we revert to a host sales tax. So there's a 1 penny sales tax. Either way, make sure I'm saying this correctly. And the host is much more difficult for cities to get our fair share.
I will actually say there will be a lot of people that will cry. Okay.
Right.
It's very
It's
difficult.
very difficult to get our share. The SPLOST is a better product for cities. So with that, but my first question was going to be for Michael Smith about paving. So as of today, I think we're like at 76% of city
For a 20-year cycle, yes.
of our 20-year cycle. So what do you estimate where do you think we can be? And because I think this is going to be if all the stars align, it's going to be another 6-year SPLOST. So at the end of that 6 years, where do you think, because that will be that'll be the end of the 20 years, sort of, because I don't know that we started in year 1, but in 6 years from now, like with this SPLOST, what do you estimate you can get accomplished in terms of paving, and how much have you thought about what it's going to cost?
Well, we're in the process of updating our 5-year plan right now. So in about sometime in the next month, I should start getting some numbers, but I don't think it's going to change very much from what it is now. Now, we had some years in the past where we spent more than the minimum to catch up, but every time we've updated the kind of minimum to stay caught up is in the $2.75 to $3 million annual range. So I would just figure 3 million a year is
3 to 4.
is
Okay.
gonna cover it.
So for 6 years, that's because there's probably been a little cost increase. I mean, that's what we're hearing from GDOT.
Right.
So maybe do 4 million to be safe a year. Jay is nodding.
Yeah.
So that's 24 million for paving.
To show one other one, just to let
Okay.
y'all to get a better feel for it. Remember, going back to this one, currently
Right.
we're spending about 60% of what we collect on the repaving program, keeping around that percentage for the life of it.
All right.
Good.
So what you really need from us is a guidance on the priorities. Right.
Excuse me, we were having a sidebar.
Yes, what we really need to give you tonight is a guidance on if we're comfortable with the priorities as defined by Jay, which is the transportation, public safety, parks, green space, and repairs. Does anybody want to remove something from that list? But that's an easy way to have a conversation, and then we can have a conversation. Does anyone have something they want to add to the list? Because we're going to do broad categories, correct? Does anyone have something that is, we're not adding an airport, by the way, but go ahead, Stacy.
Does stormwater fall under SPLOST at all?
Stormwater can, staff between Michael and myself, we wouldn't recommend using it as a secondary source because you have a utility that is actually indexed to construction on it.
Okay.
Go ahead, Joe.
Library, what about the library?
The library is an interesting one. You could, however, remember that the libraries are run by the county.
I know, but
No, it would.
We're going to fix the roof, though. You and I, Jay is going to bring forth a recommendation to fix the roof, which we should have done when we fixed the other half of the roof, because it's our building. And then also the library is asking for funding to modernize the library.
is the county?
I don't know.
We have.
So that's a good question. And if we put some money in the parks and rec and cultural thing, we can use it towards that if we chose,
Yeah, let
maybe
me-
not.
I can make an off
Okay.
the cuff recommendation here. We can expand it to parks, recreation, cultural affairs, and libraries as a group.
Mhm.
It doesn't commit you to the library itself.
That's a good idea.
And then the other thing, the county in SPLOST 1 actually put in unincorporated SPLOST money, which I was on that side of the fence and I actually argued against it because it was a general fund category. They used unincorporated money towards some library repairs. So they are willing to put skin in the game, and it's also one of those that if you went to the county and said, we're willing to put in X, that discussions can be had for joint funding.
All right, can I ask you another question?
Yes.
So I met with the Community Service Board, DeKalb Community Service Board people, representatives last week, 2 weeks ago, and they desperately need a new facility. They serve people without insurance. And it's for mental health issues, addiction issues. They would, if they could get a new facility, they would turn their current building into a 36-bed additional facility. It's too late to have a discussion about coming off the top. If the county chooses not, if we need to form a partnership with the county for the cities to have skin in the game, as we should, because it would serve our community well, what do we do? How do we phrase that? Do we need to add like hospitals or health? Can you figure that out before we vote on it, please?
Yes, I can. And I think I have a way through that.
Right.
The hard part about
Right.
it will be that if it is put on there with a dollar figure, it will commit us to at minimum the amount of that dollar.
Well, it would be, I think the way to, so I'm going to work with the other mayors. I'm going to work with our county commission. I think the votes are almost there for the county. I'm working on it.
Okay.
My goal is to get the county to do it and then whatever. Okay. But if we could just not eliminate that as a possibility. Go ahead, Rob.
I just have a question about the repairs category. Would that include, for lack of a better term, sustainability improvements? If we want to replace single pane windows with something more energy efficient, is that a repair or is that considered something new?
Welcome to the Zen code. What is it when you snap your fingers and do Zen riddles? SPLOST is kind of that way on that. I think we could make those type of things work on that. That is part of why when that $3 million got allocated by the council, we made it a general repair and improvement fund so that things like that, since it's general tax dollars, there's no questions whatsoever. In general, when you do anything to extend the life of the asset, it counts as SPLOST. So if I throw a rock through a window and we replace it with better glass, that's good. When you just replace it when it doesn't need to be is where you're in your gray area.
And also, I thought you said the maintenance stuff has to be expensive.
Generally 10 grand at minimum.
Right.
A pop. I can't punch a hole in a wall and repair it.
Or throw a rock through the window. One window wouldn't be $10,000.
You have some expensive
Okay.
windows.
All right. Anybody else have, go ahead, John, and then I'll come back to you, Joe. Sorry.
Yeah, I guess we haven't really explained that this is really only for capital only. There's no operating expenses whatsoever in this. So we can't run the city, we can't run the police department, we can't run the city on SPLOST funds.
You are 100% correct.
I think that needs to be said more often. I don't think it was said enough today. Going back, if the county as a whole votes no on SPLOST, but one municipality or another votes yes, how does that work?
Must pass countywide.
Must pass countywide. Okay, I just want to make sure that's talked. And then if it's the opposite, if it passes countywide but fails in one municipality, how does that work?
That municipality will still get its allotment. So if city A votes it down, but the county as a whole votes it up, then that it will still be passed. It's levied across the county and distributed across the cities according to an IGA. It doesn't have to pass in every city to pass.
And then would that city be mandated to follow what they put on the ballot, or at that point it didn't pass? So what happens that?
They would still be, I will speak on behalf of my council who will tell me I'm speaking correctly. They will be legally bound by what they put in their IGA.
Okay. Flip it backwards now. We don't pass SPLOST and it goes to host. What is the host breakdown per municipality and what's our share?
Welcome to a Gordian knot that will have to be cut at that time. We've already discussed this internally at the county level. There is going to be a problem because of the dates and the way SPLOST and host are collected. So we are currently unsure of how that will go. The thing I can say right now is the current, and let's call it the e-host, is general and the Grady tax are the two that just don't show up in your tax bill anymore. When it goes back to old host, all of the county funds, which we don't participate in, such as the public works and the police and all that, would get a credit to that they didn't have. The cities would then get an allotment that is calculated, and it hasn't been calculated in 5 or 6 years. So I am unsure of how we would even go back to that at this point.
So will that determination be done prior to the vote, or will that be a legal fight if that happens amongst the county and municipalities for years going forward, tying up funds?
I will say, I don't like to use the term legal fight, but if it fails and we have to go back, it will be a very long, extended process in figuring it out.
I would hope they figure out the host funding mechanism prior to any vote. That's pretty much answered all my questions.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Joe, sorry.
Hey, Jay. So the first, just to clarify, first on your slide, that was the original budget, the verbiage, that was that on the ballot? Was that the ballot?
That was what was on the IGA as passed by the city, and I would assume that was the exact wording on a ballot in Dunwoody, but
Something like that.
it might be a little bit shorter, but that's what the council passed, their verbiage.
Okay, and John asked the question about whether a city, I needed to just hear that again, your reply back. You said it has to pass countywide, but a city, so one city voted against it. Are you talking about then they aggregate the vote of all the yeses and all the nos throughout
Correct.
the whole county?
The call for election is actually to levy a tax. So that is a countywide ballot, with the exception of Atlanta and DeKalb is not included in this because of the sewer tax. So all of the entities within DeKalb levy an extra penny. The IGA between the cities and the county shows the distribution of that penny. So even if a city fails to pass it, it is still distributed in the same fashion.
And we get to put our own question on the ballot, or is it a county question that's going on our ballot?
The people in Dunwoody will see a different question than people of Brookhaven because they will choose different
Yeah,
items.
right. Just asking dumb questions because I need to be triple sure. And do we have a hard deadline of when we have to approve this from a council perspective? Back to you.
There is a DMA meeting later this week that we'll get some more clarification on, but I am prepping this up so that we could possibly approve it at the first August meeting to get it out of the way so that we're not having to do a special called meeting in case the date moves up.
Would that be an action item then, I guess, right away, straight ahead?
Yes, which is why,
Sure.
I mean.
Yep.
If there's something specific, I mean, like we talked about the library, we talked about the community service board. I think the bigger thing is not to figure out what we're including, because it's pretty inclusive. If there's something missing, is that pretty good guidance, Jay?
Yeah, I think, and generally along the lines of something in transportation to still be in the 80s, police to still be around the 14%,
Right.
and then parks be a category. Try to work in what I do with healthcare, and then still keep a small repairs category. Am I hearing that right?
Yeah, go ahead, Jeff.
And then just to wrap up on the questions, when I start reading the verbiage again on their original budget, because congestion relief, I get you, safety and operational improvements, that will include, I'm glad we have safety on there on the legacy original question, because obviously with safe streets and so on. So if we're going to do things for safety improvements, I just want to make that statement out, because when the first thing talking about road widenings and congestion relief, I'm looking at the safety aspect. So I appreciate keeping the safety aspect in there. And this goes back to Michael Smith potentially with our CIP, right? So we're in the midst of doing a budget and we're going to do a new CIP. It's a 5-year CIP. Am I asking too much to say, do we have a CIP that matches against the 6-year budget?
I'm going to hijack this.
That's my nirvana.
Okay. Your budget that you will be unveiled to you is going to have what we call SPLOST A and SPLOST B in it. Legally, we would feel comfortable with SPLOST A being a budget that if SPLOST passed, here's it is. We need to also have SPLOST B if it stops cold. And that Michael and I've already worked internally on what would happen if SPLOST stopped. So we'll have it as a separate document in there for adoption if it fails.
Yeah.
One clarification question, just so I also am triple sure. In the question on the ballot, it will have the various transportation, public safety, repairs, topics, park space we've talked about. Does it have to have the percentage allocation?
Okay, I recommend only dollar figures
Dollar-
because you are
But we're-
committed to the dollars.
Right.
If if you put percentages, you're committed to the percentages. You can't break from it.
And the dollars we're using is that 51 million that we
Ish.
see?
Barring unless there might be an uptick based
Right.
upon a discussion that'll happen on
Right.
Thursday.
So the mayors I thought we had figured it out. As chairman of the DeKalb Mayor's Committee, I was shocked to learn a week ago or so that we hadn't, even though the mayors had set some deadlines. There's one city that. Anyway, by Thursday, we should have a plan. By Thursday, we should have a plan.
And I will send an update to y'all.
Yes, so by Thursday, we should have enough of a plan that Jay can take the numbers. The purpose of talking about it from percentages, from our perspective, is setting priorities. So what we're saying is that the guidance we're giving Jay today is not what 84% equals of the 50+ million that we're going to estimate on. But it is we're comfortable with 84% of whatever the amount is going towards transportation. We're comfortable with 14% or whatever the amount's going to be going to public safety. Whatever the numbers are going to be, you're going to come back
With hard numbers.
with hard numbers once we come to hopefully Thursday, an understanding of the population numbers that we are using. And also that we're for sure doing 6 years. Those are the two things that I thought we had solved and was surprised that we had not. Let me ask you one other question. On the current SPLOST, you gave us the chart of, the unaudited chart. How many more months are left of SPLOST collection for the SPLOST?
Till end of April, I think we get a check in May, so April of next year.
And you've given us this chart with the amount that I can't do quickly in my head, but are we pretty much on target to have spent everything or close to it?
Okay, always think of this, your SPLOST will probably spend 1 or 2 more
Right,
years after
after.
it's finished.
But you and Michael Smith and Richard Plato are comfortable with where we are. There was some criticism of the county because they have a lot more left than some people think they should have spent. But we're doing well actually spending it.
Yeah, and I actually think if out of all the things that we haven't is the reason that we've actually recommended decreasing the repairs part a little bit.
Okay.
It's taken us a little bit more to do that. So that's the only one that's fallen behind. Between Michael and between Chief Grogan, they're clipping along and they know it's the source to do capital improvements.
Okay. Thank you. All right. So you'll just bring this back to us in 3 weeks, we hope, whenever,
got it.
I think that's the next meeting.
Right. Oh, one other, I just do for full disclosure on it. We will be recommending also adding into the ability to bond SPLOST. I don't see us ever using it, but
Okay.
it's not wise not to include it on a ballot referendum.
Was it included last time?
Yes,
Okay, that's fine. Yes, John.
One more thing, if I could, on the
Okay.
public safety, I'd love to get some analysis from the police department. I saw what we spent their money on previously, but is there any big ticket items coming specifically regarding 911? Is there anything in the chatcom, the contract, the next go around for 911 emergency services? I'd love to get some analysis to see if that 14% is still an accurate number based on a possible big hit coming at some point in the future. Thank you.
And how we word it so that we don't there could be some technology that's in its infancy today that could be available in 4 years.
Yeah, but we did the police one just to be equipment and our public safety equipment to get almost everything.
Okay. Thank you. All right. Did we give you what you're looking for?
Yes, thank y'all very much.
Okay. We look forward to solving that population issue on Thursday. Right. Okay. Public comments, if you do you have any cards? You'll need to fill out a card again. You can do it after you speak. You'll have 3 minutes. Just introduce yourself, please. And then,
Steve Katz on
Okay.
moratorium. First, you did not give staff more time to complete what was already done because nothing was done. In 5 months, we submitted an Open Records Act request and it's clear that nothing was done for 5 months. Number two, you're not extending the moratorium, you are expanding it. Now it includes outpatient, it includes mental health. It includes co-occurring. And so now in the city of Dunwoody, no new mental health, inpatient or outpatient, can be opened. And to say on the agenda that you're only extending it is misleading to the citizens of Dunwoody. Third, you cannot say that this is about zoning, not about treatment, because nobody on the council asked a question about where demand was, whether demand exceeds supply. And so demand, if the demand exceeds the supply, then it's very much about treatment and not about zoning. So I would hope that the agenda would be corrected to say that you not only extended the moratorium, you expanded it. Thank you.
Thank you. When you have a second, if you'll just grab a card and fill it out. Thank you. Ben Masika, just approach the microphone. You'll have 3 minutes. Please speak into the microphone.
When his name is Paul, I think, came up here and you asked him the question, if this is affecting any current businesses, is revised of this moratorium. And the answer is it's actually directed directly at us. Why? Because we applied for a business license and our architect has submitted for permits to finish remodeling one of our current buildings. And for somebody to say this is not affecting a current business, that's an outright lie. And bottom line is what I understand here is that the city council is discriminating against disabilities. That's what it sounds like, because you guys voted and agreed on something that was completely changed from the original one. And the guy can come up here and make up whatever he wants to, and you guys just agree and go along with it. And it's pretty sad, because I know what we do in this community is absolutely amazing, and the amount of people we help here. But if you guys don't want to see that, and you guys agree that somebody can come up here and tell an outright lie and say, well, that's accepted. I get your point. Thank you very much.
Emily Anderson, approach the microphone. You'll have 3 minutes. Thank you.
Emily Anderson. I'm really nervous, but
You're doing great already. Just make sure you speak in the microphone. You
Okay.
can adjust it if you need to. It goes up and down.
I work at Atlanta Recovery Place. I'm an addict myself, and what I've seen done here has been completely different than what I've seen at any treatment center. And having another facility open that provides this type of care, it makes a difference compared to other places. It really does. And I've seen lawyers and teachers and preachers who all suffer from this. And I know this is political, but we need it. I have a video on my phone of someone high off of methamphetamine at the UPS a couple weeks ago. I have the video, and this is very much still an issue. We can never not have enough treatment centers. Otherwise, our beds would be empty if we didn't need any more, if we didn't have enough people needing it. I don't know. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Great. Any more public comment? All right. You got to fill out a card, but you can do it after.
Not to double dip. I know that you guys, I'm Andrew Merker again. You guys said this is about zoning, and I don't disagree, but you guys currently have 7 treatment centers operating in the city of Dunwoody, all under OI. So I don't know that it takes a whole year to determine zoning requirements for what has been operational in Dunwoody since 1973. And if it needs to change zoning, it seems that we've been doing it wrong for quite some time. And so we're a little bit behind the 8 ball. So to stand behind the, we need to research where zoning would be appropriate for services. Seems like a farce. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. I think that concludes public comment. Now, city manager comments.
Yes, Mayor, thank you. I do want to
once again, thank the council for the support with the police department and the staff on the new pay allocation and compensation chart. That means a lot for our police department and staying competitive in this environment. The second thing, Mayor, based on our conversation we had earlier today, I'm gonna ask David Ayers to come up. And I want David to talk about 3 topics. The first one is going to be Shamley Dunwoody Road at Womack, to do a construction update on that. The second piece will be, I want to give an update on the Dunwoody Road project. And then the final update will be on the Shamley Dunwoody Road Gateway, the Georgetown Gateway. So with that, David, if you can elaborate on those 2 and start with the Womack Shamley Dunwoody, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. So Shamley Dunwoody, Womack, that project is headed towards the end, fortunately. And we anticipate wrapping that up before school starts, not in its complete where every single thing is done, but where the intended through lane coming off of Womack, we're able to go straight across, and we'll have our left turn lane in effect. The pavers are supposed to be here this week, and that should be about 4 to 5 days of work. And that intersection is going to be a little busy, so we should anticipate that. The striping will come after that, and the traffic signal in its current configuration can still function. We are waiting on Georgia Power to turn our power on for the new signal, but the old signal will adequately perform and be able to take care of the functions that we need for it to take care of in its new configuration. That project should be good to go by the time school starts, and the balance of the work should be relatively minimal. Dunwoody Road is also on schedule to be reopened by the before the start of school. We intend to open it by the Friday before school starts or before. We want to allow the contractor to complete as many things as possible, including all punch list items, and we intend to keep the road closed, up to that point, and anything else, past, I believe school starts on the 7th for everyone. So we should be in really good shape to reopen that road, and then we'll do anything else by just, minor lane closures and things. The Georgetown Gateway project has had its share of lane closures on the east and westbound lanes, mainly due to the construction of a pretty major crossing there in front of the Georgetown Shopping Center. And at times that has limited one lane in eastbound, one lane in westbound. We have completed that crossing. It was one of the more tedious crossings because it was also involved some work in the middle of the road, not just going across the road. In about 3 weeks, we anticipate having a significant amount of work completed from, I'm going to reference some businesses if it's okay, from front of the Taqueria entrance up to the entrance ramp to the interstate to 285. And as they complete that curb and gutter, they're working diligently to be able to open up a portion of the right turn only lane to where you're not just doing a straight through and then a right turn onto the interstate, that you'll have a length of a dedicated turn lane. So we anticipate that being about 3 weeks. We're still working through some utilities. AT&T is still on schedule to complete their work in September. And we also have I guess you'd say the eastern portion towards the North Shallowford end. The majority of that work is all complete. We have all of our lights working from Chateau Drive down to North Shallowford, and they're in the process of installing the crossing beacons. When we have the balance of the signage up, we'll be able to activate those. So I'll take questions if there are.
So I think on the Georgetown project, I don't know if Michael's still here or not, but on the Georgetown project, what is really problematic is the state of the lack of the state of the sidewalks. Particularly the sidewalk that's raised way up. People are reporting, people that are disabled can't. When do we think we're gonna fix that? When are we gonna have a place where people can safely walk on the sidewalks completely on one side? Do we know? Do you know, David? Oh, go ahead.
I can jump in.
Right.
Well, maybe David can give more of a schedule, but we did talk to the contractor recently because there's some more, the area in front of, like on the Kroger side has to be torn up some more where that sidewalk is. So we talked to the contractor about focusing, in addition to doing the stormwater work, getting the sidewalk complete on the other side as much as possible down in front of the Burger King so that people could walk, they could cross at Old Spring House Light and then walk down there. And then if they needed to, cross back at the Kroger light.
That's what people are already doing. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, if somebody's having accessibility problems, I don't think we've been contacted about that, but if we can identify those specific places, maybe we can.
We've had
work on some
emails
grants.
about that one part of the sidewalk that, because I forwarded them, I believe, at least once, where it's elevated and the gentleman who's raised it.
Oh, yeah, I know which one. you're
And
talking
so on Facebook, which is just a place where people treat it like the community shopping center now, where they tell you the grocery store, what they're saying is that somebody pushing a stroller, someone in a wheelchair can't navigate that section of the sidewalk anymore, or can't navigate that section of sidewalk because of the change in elevation, for lack of a better word.
about.
Can you
Okay.
take a look at
Yeah,
that,
yeah,
please? And
yeah.
let's come up with a plan. Because I guess we're a ways away from leveling everything, if I had to guess.
Yeah, the final paving will be at the very end. Yeah.
Right. And do we have an estimate per chance of like when the final end is?
The schedule for the project completion is first quarter of next year.
Right. So we need to address the elevation change or whatever it is in that sidewalk, at least temporarily. Anybody have other questions about the rest of them? John?
I'll ask a quick question about the Shanley Dunwoody Womack, and since the right-hand turn on red, is that going to be ready for the first day of school as well? Is the signage going to be up? I know there was the sight lines and all the rest. Hopefully that's all been corrected.
I can say all the sight lines and the things needed for that are corrected. As far as the right turn on red, we should have adequate signage in place, but knowing schedules, I wouldn't want to commit to that at this time. There will still be a few items to complete, but that is on the agenda to push to have everything open in the configuration that it should be in, so people can use it for its intended function.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else? Thank you very much, David, for pulling that together. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Anything else, Eric? No executive session, right?
No, Mayor, and that's correct. No executive session this evening.
Council comments? There's a movie night this Saturday at Brook Run. It's the Nintendo movie, but that's not what it's called. Mario, I think Super Mario. The radio station 98.5 is sponsoring it. So it's supposed to be a fun movie. Come out. It's at Brook Run. Anybody have anything else? All right. That concludes the meeting.
Move to adjourn?
Moved by Tom,
Second.
second by Rob. All in favor?
All right.
Any opposed? Hearing none, that motion passes. Thank you all for your time. Woo-hoo.